Hello, I'm live. I was having a very flat day today, so I'm wearing an extremely unconvincing wig just to motivate me a little bit, fling the ringlets around. Having a pretty good time, apart from the bad day. Hi, Nick. Hi, Jesse. We are going to forge ahead with Frankenstein. It's it's very, very cheap. Um, I thought about painting a little bit of black into this bit here to make it look slightly more real, but I haven't really been doing stuff as such. I used to have my hair red like this in a few times actually. The only problem is you have to have a dark pillowcase because I would use the cheap dye so it would just rub off in the night. Ha ha ha. I was very brave yesterday. I went to the dentist. I was incredibly strong-minded. Um, I said a deeply spiritual prayer about fear and not letting it kill your mind that comes from a religion, probably. I think it's from the Bible, I want to say, or it could be from the Girl Guides. Can't remember. Oh yeah, the Black Goth. I go back to that all the time. I did horrific bleach a few times. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I went to the dentist and I was like, just could you not do my hair as well? Honestly. No, you're the bravest, Danny. I've seen you get a flu shot. I know how traumatizing that was. So it took a little bit longer to get ready than I was used to because I put this on and realized I was gonna have to darken my eyebrows, and I am not good at eyebrows. I just leave them alone most of the time. But yes, I'm glad that you guys are getting a kick out of the wig because it is making my day slightly brighter. I don't I don't think there is a dentist in the Octagon still. I don't think so. It might be. Um, Hi Josh, thank you. I was feeling flat. I put on a wig. And now I feel flat, but my head itches. So it's all different. It was pretty traumatic, yeah. Especially for me. Oh my god. No, it was really nice being able to help you through it. So, recap. Yes, I know. I know that in theory, but yeah. Because how could you have been singing Big Ted's Takeaways on TV when I was like 3 and now I'm middle-aged? Well, I'm nearly middle-aged. It's not my birthday yet. When that comes, I will be. Um, for someone who is not middle-aged, Victor Frankenstein, 21 years old, just come home because his youngest brother has been murdered by he's been murdered by the people we're supposed to think that it is the other beautiful girl that the Frankensteins adopted because she was too pretty to be living with a poor family. Um, but it was actually the creature, obviously. I will be middle-aged. So I'm gonna move into a whole new, like, advertising demographic, I think. I caught myself looking at, like, rugs on the warehouse website today. It was a sobering experience. So I took some pills to get unsobered. Such a shitty joke. Anyway, let's get started. So this poor girl is on trial for her life now, and Victor can't tell anybody about the creature because they wouldn't believe him. But he hasn't thought of telling people, there's this 8 foot tall man who really hates me, and I have seen him in the area. That'll do it. Go with that. Oh, the other thing before we begin the reading is that I'm wearing a velour tracksuit. That's right. It's a sweatshirt, but there are also trousers. It's amazing. I feel exactly like Russian Tony Soprano. And I look exactly like Russian Tony Soprano as well. Very cool. But yeah, it's amazing. Very, very soft. Okay, so the trial is about to begin. Victor has reconnected with his father, his second to youngest brother, Ernest. Victor, 21, natural philosophy student, keen for adventures. Your cousins will love me. I don't know what that face is meant to look like in real life, and I don't really want to find out. So, she's going to be on trial for her life because they will, the Frankensteins are rich. They'll hang her if she's guilty. They find her guilty. Elizabeth Lavenza is there. Yeah, I know. He was like, I saw him. He definitely did it. He murdered my brother. He did it because he hates me. There's no point talking to him. Well, there was no point talking to him at the time. Yeah. God, Victor is terrible. But the good news is that it is a very gay story. Victor's dad and his best friend, Victor and Henry Clavell, and now Elizabeth and Justine, sorry. Elizabeth and Justine are very, very close. They may just be best friends. You can interpret it any way you want, because Mary Shelley's not on Twitter, destroying every theme of the book that she wrote. Not naming names. Yay, I have one for me. I can't drink whiskey. I like it, but after about like 5 sips, maybe, I get a little bit fighty. So just gonna stay off the fight juice, I think. And then we are gonna get into chapter 8 of Frankenstein. I don't think they ever told us how old William was exactly. They're all mourning him like he's a baby, but then Ernest seems to be kind of a young man. Oh, I'll be able to fight your boss without whiskey. Don't worry about it. You could give me just the one though. Just because I'm like a really good dancer when I'm super drunk, as you know. And that will help the victory dance, I really do want to fight my boss. But leave that. Oh, for God's sake. What? What? Laura? Flora? I can't tell if Flora is yelling at Niobe or if she's hurt out there. I don't think she's hurt. I think she's trying to stop Niobe from coming through the fence. If that changes, I will get up immediately. I know that you guys love Flora. I'm going to mute this and go and look for Flora just for a second. Please excuse. Okay, I was out there calling her, and my neighbors over the fence seem to be doing something, rattling a spoon with a bowl. And now that I'm calling her while they're doing that, she's not replying. So I think it was either Flora or Niobe um, meowing outside the neighbor's door until they fed them. Didn't actually see them. Got flowers in my hair or dead leaves in my wig, however you want to look at it. Also, this thing's a snake. Pretty cool. But I might after this sort of wander around to the neighbors and be like, "Hey, how many cats do you think you have? Go scan those microchips." But anyway, enough fucking around. Enough of Flora, making me worry about her when she's just out there running around the neighborhood. Spoiled little missy she is. Okay. Frankenstein, Chapter 8. We passed a few sad hours until 11 o'clock, when the trial was to commence. This is Justine's, you remember. My father and the rest of the family being obliged to act as witnesses, I accompanied them to the court. She's out there thieving. I told her, only from the rich, and then give to the poor. If that's you, yeah, keep it. During the whole of this wretched mockery of justice, I suffered living torture. It was to be decided whether the result of my curiosity and lawless devices would cause the death of two of my fellow beings. One, a smiling baby full of innocence and joy. The other far more dreadfully murdered, with every aggravation of infamy that could make the murder memorable and horror. Actually, that's a really good point, because Justine's mother already blames her for her siblings dying of consumption or cholera or whatever it was. And now she's actually being put on trial, killing her semi-adopted sibling. Shit. Silver the rich give to my poor. Ah, it's really good. Sorry, I'm gonna pay attention to the text. Well, I'm gonna try. Justine also was a girl of merit and possessed qualities which promised to render her life happy. Now all was to be obliterated in an ignominious grave, and I the cause. 1,000 times rather would I have confessed myself guilty of the crime ascribed to Justine, but I was absent when it was committed, and such a declaration would have been considered the ravings of a madman, and would not have exculpated her who suffered through me. He is bound and determined that the creature is the killer. I just keep checking for Flora or Niobe. She's harder to see. The appearance of Justine was calm. She was dressed in mourning, and her countenance, always engaging, was rendered by the solemnity of her feelings exquisitely beautiful. Yet she appeared confident in innocence and did not tremble, although gazed on and execrated by thousands. For all the kindness which her beauty might otherwise have excited was obliterated in the minds of the spectators by the imagination of the enormity she was supposed to have committed. She was tranquil, yet her tranquillity was evidently constrained, and as her confusion had before been adduced as a proof of her guilt, she worked up her mind to an appearance of courage. When she entered the court, she threw her eyes around it and quickly discovered where we were seated. A tear seemed to dim her eye when she saw us, but she quickly recovered herself, and a look of sorrowful affection seemed to attest her utter guiltlessness. That'd be a great twist if she did murder little Willie. The trial began, and after the advocate against her had stated the charge, several witnesses were called. Several strange facts combined against her, which might have staggered anyone who had not such proof of her innocence as I had. She had been out the whole of the night on which the murder had been committed, and towards morning had been perceived by a market woman, not far from the spot where the body of the murdered child had afterwards been found. The woman asked her what she did there, but she looked very strangely and only returned a confused and unintelligible answer. She returned to the house about 8 o'clock, and when one inquired where she had passed the night, she replied that she had been looking for the child and demanded earnestly if anything had been heard concerning him. When shown the body, she fell into violent hysterics and kept her bed for several days. The picture was then produced, which the servant had found in her pocket, and when Elizabeth, in a faltering voice, proved that it was the same which, an hour before the child had been missed, she had placed around his neck, a murmur of horror and indignation filled the court. Justine was called on for her defence. As the trial had proceeded, her countenance had altered, Surprise, horror, and misery were strongly expressed. Sometimes she struggled with her tears, but when she was desired to plead, she collected her powers and spoke in an audible though variable voice. God knows, she said, how entirely I am innocent, but I do not pretend that my protestations should acquit me. I rest my innocence on a plain and simple explanation of the facts which have been adduced against me, and I hope the character I have always borne will incline my judges to a favourable interpretation, where any circumstance appears doubtful or suspicious. When I do murder, well, inevitably, my defence will also be, I've never done one before. Also, I hope the judges will take into account how hot I am and be like, benefit of the doubt. Thank you. Just kidding. I'm not going to murder anybody. I mean, unless something terrible happens. Oh, no. I just set up my own action movie. It's going to bomb at the box office because it's about a girl. Ugh, there's so much going on in my life. Sorry, back to Justine. She then related that by the permission of Elizabeth, she had passed the evening of the night on which the murder had been committed at the house of an aunt at Shen, a village situated at about a league from Geneva. On her return at about 9 o'clock, she met a man who asked her if she had seen anything of the child who was lost. She was alarmed by this account and passed several hours in looking for him when the gates of Geneva were shut, and she was forced to remain several hours of the night in a barn belonging to a cottage, being unwilling to call up the inhabitants to whom she was well known. Most of the night she spent here watching. Towards morning, she believed that she slept for a few minutes. Some steps disturbed her, and she awoke. It was dawn, and she quitted her asylum, that she might again endeavour to find my brother. If she had gone near the spot where his body lay, it was without her knowledge. That she had been bewildered when questioned by the market woman was not surprising, since she had passed a sleepless night and the fate of poor William was yet uncertain. Concerning the picture, she could give no account. A most typical Thursday. Why, the tales began at 6:30 p.m., although the bitch did not start to read until nigh 7. No, only usually take about 10 minutes to start to read. That's because none of you realize that reports mode starts at 18:30 hours. It's a David Mitchell and Webb show joke. I'm really tired, guys. I know, continued the unhappy victim, how heavily and fatally this one circumstance weighs against me. But I have no power of explaining it. And when I have expressed my utter ignorance, I am only left to conjecture concerning the probabilities by which it may have been placed in my pocket. But here also I am checked. I believe that I have no enemy on earth, and none surely would have been so wicked as to destroy me wantonly. Did the murderer place it there? I know of no opportunity afforded him for so doing. Or if I had, why should he have stolen the jewel to part with it again so soon? I don't know, Justine, it might be related to the footsteps you talked about earlier. I commit my cause to the justice of my judges, yet I see no room for hope. I beg permission to have a few witnesses examined concerning my character, and if their testimony shall not outweigh my supposed guilt, I must be condemned, although I would pledge my salvation on my innocence. Several witnesses were called who had known her for many years, and they spoke well of her, but fear and hatred of the crime of which they supposed her guilty rendered them timorous and unwilling to come forward. Elizabeth saw even this last resource, her excellent dispositions and irreproachable conduct, was about to fail the accused, when, although violently agitated, she desired permission to address the court. A woman wants to talk to a judge? Oh, Elizabeth, I'm getting grudging respect for you. I am, said she, the cousin of the unhappy child who was murdered, or rather his sister, for I was educated by and have lived with his parents ever since and even long before his birth. Yes, it is confusing, isn't it? It may therefore be judged indecent in me to come forward on this occasion. But when I see a fellow creature about to perish through the cowardice of her pretended friends, I wish to be allowed to speak, that I may say what I know of her character. I am well acquainted with the accused. I have lived in the same house with her, at one time for 5, and at another for nearly 2 years. During all that period, she appeared to me the most amiable and benevolent of human creatures. She nursed Madame Frankenstein, my aunt, in her last illness, with the greatest affection and care, and afterwards attended her own mother during a tedious illness, in a manner that excited the admiration of all who knew her, after which she again lived in my uncle's house, where she was beloved by all the family. She was warmly attached to the child who is now dead, and acted towards him like a most affectionate mother. For my own part, I do not hesitate to say that, notwithstanding all the evidence produced against her, I believe and rely on her perfect innocence. She had no temptation for such an action. As to the bauble on which the chief proof rests, if she had earnestly desired it, I should have willingly given it to her, so much do I esteem and value her. Elizabeth and Justine have at some point sat in a tree. Kissing, I believe. A murmur of approbation followed Elizabeth's simple and powerful appeal, but it was excited by her generous interference, and not in favour of poor Justine, on whom the public indignation was turned with renewed violence, charging her with the blackest ingratitude. She herself wept as Elizabeth spoke, but she did not answer. My own agitation and anguish was extreme during the whole trial. I believed in her innocence. I knew it. Could the demon who had, I did not for a minute doubt, murdered my brother, also in his hellish sport, have betrayed the innocent to death and ignominy? I know how to say ignominious, but how to say ignominy? Haven't heard it out loud before. I could not sustain the horror of my situation, and when I perceived that the popular voice and the countenances of the judges had already condemned my unhappy victim, I rushed out of the court in agony. The tortures of the accused did not equal mine. She was sustained by innocence, but the fangs of remorse tore my bosom and would not forgo their hold. Columbo could solve the case. He'd be like, say, Dr. Frankenstein, one more thing. Why do you have a jar that says insane criminal brain in your lab? It's a small detail, but it's bugging me. Although that was, I don't even know which Frankenstein movie that was in. It can't have been the first one. Don't know. Don't happen in any of them. I passed a night of unmingled wretchedness. In the morning, I went to the court. My lips and throat were parched. I dared not ask the fatal question, but I was known, and the officer guessed the cause of my visit. The ballots had been thrown. They were all black, and Justine was condemned. Abnormal brain. Very young Frankenstein. He's 21 years old. Why is such an idiot? I cannot pretend to describe what I then felt. I had before experienced sensations of horror, and I have endeavoured to bestow upon them adequate expressions, but words cannot convey an idea of the heart-sickening despair that I then endured. The person to whom I addressed myself added that Justine had already confessed her guilt. That evidence, he observed, was hardly required in so glaring a case, but I am glad of it. And indeed, none of our judges like to condemn a criminal upon circumstantial evidence, be it ever so decisive. Yeah, this is about me now, yeah. This was strange and unexpected intelligence. What could it mean? Had my eyes deceived me? And was I really as mad as the whole world would believe me to be if I disclosed the object of my suspicions? I hastened to return home, and Elizabeth eagerly demanded the result. My cousin, replied I, weirdly, because I was going to marry her. Young Frankenstein, yes, of course. Of course, I have not seen Young Frankenstein, but I just got what you meant. Do not use. Yeah, dead dove, do not eat. Insane mind, do not use. My cousin, replied I, very normally. It is decided as you may have expected. All judges had rather that 10 innocent should suffer than that one guilty should escape. But she has confessed. This was a dire blow to poor Elizabeth, who had relied with firmness upon Justine's innocence. Alas, said she, like a dickhead, how shall I ever again believe in human goodness? Justine, whom I loved and esteemed as my sister, how could she put on those smiles of innocence only to betray? Her mild eyes seemed incapable of any severity or guile, and yet she has committed a murder. People are pretty complicated. Soon after, we heard that the poor victim had expressed a desire to see my cousin. My father wished her not to go, but said that he left it to her own judgment and feelings to decide. Yes, said Elizabeth, I will go, although she is guilty, and you, Victor, shall accompany me. I cannot go alone. Yes, sweetheart, have you got something? No, you haven't. Okay, in you come. Is Niobe behind you? Niobe. No, doesn't look like she's out there. Okay. Well, yes, Flora has come in. She was meowing so loudly I thought she may have had a mouse, but she doesn't. No. Danny's making some emojis in Twitch, so that when I stream on Twitch and you guys see a cat, you can just spam the little cat icon. They look really good. Hey, Nash. How's it going? Yes, the cat subplot was that I heard a cat yowling outside, and I thought Flora might have been hurt. But then mouthful meow, absolutely. Yeah, then I kind of heard the neighbors banging a bowl and spoon, and she wasn't yelling out anymore, so yep. It was just her being a low-down, greedy little... I love her so much. Awesome. Thanks for being here. Otherwise, it would be super weird. It would be just me. Yes, Elizabeth, I will go, although she is guilty. And you, Victor, shall accompany me. I cannot go alone. The idea of this visit was torture to me, yet I could not refuse. We entered the gloomy prison chamber and beheld Justine sitting on some straw at the farther end. Her hands were manacled and her head rested on her knees. She rose on seeing us enter, and when we were left alone with her, she threw herself at the feet of Elizabeth, weeping bitterly. My cousin wept also. Oh, Justine, said she, why did you rob me of my last consolation? Oh, it's all about you, is it? I relied on your innocence, and although I was then very wretched, I am not so miserable as I am now. And do you also believe that I am so very, very wicked? Do you also join with my enemies to crush me, to condemn me as a murderer? Her voice was suffocated with sobs. Rise, my poor girl, said Elizabeth. Why do you kneel if you are innocent? I'm not one of your enemies. I believed you guiltless, notwithstanding every evidence, until I heard that you had yourself declared your guilt. That report you say is false, and be assured, dear Justine, that nothing can shake my confidence in you for a moment but your own confession. I did confess, but I confessed a lie. I confessed that I might obtain absolution, but now that falsehood lies heavier at my heart than all my other sins. The God of heaven forgive me. Ever since I was condemned, my confessor has besieged me. He threatened and menaced until I almost began to think that I was the monster that he said I was. He threatened excommunication and hellfire at my last moments if I continued obdurate. Dear lady, I had none to support me. All looked on me as a wretch doomed to ignominy and perdition. What could I do? In an evil hour I subscribed to a lie, and now only am I truly miserable. She paused, weeping, and then continued, I thought with horror, my sweet lady, that you should believe your Justine, whom your blessed aunt had so highly honoured, and whom you loved, was a creature capable of a crime which none but the devil himself could have perpetrated. Dear William, dearest blessed child, I shall soon see you again in heaven. We shall all be happy, and that consoles me, going as I am to suffer ignominy and death. I believe in Justine and Elizabeth. Yep, that's what's going on. Oh, Justine, forgive me for having for one moment distrusted you. Why did you confess? But do not mourn, dear girl, do not fear. I will proclaim, I will prove your innocence. I will melt the stony hearts of your enemies by my tears and prayers. You shall not die. You, my playfellow, my companion, my sister, perish on the scaffold. No, I never could survive so horrible a misfortune. Yeah, it is all about Victor, but it is also all about Elizabeth. And it's a little bit about Justine, but like, not really, 'cause she's kind of poor, you know. Justine shook her head mournfully. I do not fear to die, she said. That pang is past. God raises my weakness and gives me courage to endure the worst. I leave a sad and bitter world. And if you remember me and think of me as one unjustly condemned, I am resigned to the fate awaiting me. Learn from me, dear lady, to submit in patience to the will of heaven. I know I have a problem with that religion. During this conversation, I had retired to a corner of the prison room where I could conceal the horrid anguish that possessed me. Despair. Who dared talk of that? The poor victim, who on the morrow was to pass the awful boundary between life and death, felt not, as I did, such deep and bitter agony. Victor! Victor, you're being so 21 years old right now. I gnashed my teeth and ground them together, uttering a groan that came from my inmost soul. Justine started, because of course she did. Why is he groaning like that? Justine started. When she saw who it was, she approached me and said, Dear sir, you are very kind to visit me. You, I hope, do not believe that I am guilty. I could not answer. No, Justine, said Elizabeth. He is more convinced of your innocence than I was. But even when he heard that you had confessed, he did not credit it. Flora just stared at the door like she hates it, so I'm going to check for Niobe. Niobe! You coming in? Nope. Nope. False alarm. Well, yeah, I mean, it's like she's like poor and a woman. So like, what does she really have to live for anyway? But then she's also going to go to heaven because she's innocent. Unlike Victor, who is not only guilty of creating the creature, he is also troubled and complicated. Oh, I don't use kissy noises with the cats. I use the clicking noise when it's food time. Ah, Flora just looked up. I know, I know. Oh, another dead leaf. Wonderful souvenirs of an adventure. Do you mean kissy noises usually work in calling cats or in getting the judge to not murder you? I hope I never have to find out. But yeah, Justine's going to heaven. I mean, what more could she get out of this life? Very little. She's happy, it's fine. Even when he heard that you had confessed, he did not credit it. I truly thank him. In these last moments, I feel the sincerest gratitude towards those who think of me with kindness. How sweet is the affection of others to such a wretch as I am. It removes more than half my misfortune, and I feel as if I could die in peace now that my innocence is acknowledged by you, dear lady, and your cousin. Thus the poor sufferer tried to comfort others and herself. She indeed gained the resignation she desired. But I, the true murderer, felt the never-dying worm alive in my bosom, which allowed of no hope or consolation. Elizabeth also wept and was unhappy, but hers was the misery of innocence, which, like a cloud that passes over the fair moon, for a while hides but cannot tarnish its brightness. Anguish and despair had penetrated into the core of my heart. I bore a hell within me, which nothing could extinguish. We stayed several hours with Justine, and it was with great difficulty that Elizabeth could tear herself away. I wish, cried she, that I were to die with you. I cannot live in this world of misery. Yeah, every time the judge kind of looks at you, you're going, I think you'd be held in contempt. Not just like by the court, but probably by everyone. I don't know. We'll try it. Justine assumed an air of cheerfulness, while she with difficulty repressed her bitter tears. She embraced Elizabeth and said in a voice of half-suppressed emotion, Farewell, sweet lady, dearest Elizabeth, my beloved and only friend. May heaven in its bounty bless and preserve you. May this be the last misfortune that you will ever suffer. Live and be happy and make others so. And on the morrow, Justine died. So I don't know if you were... Is that Ivy? I don't know if you were hoping for a last minute save for Justine, but nope. Yeah, Lizzie and Justine were lesbian for each other because no, Justine's still lesbian for Lizzie in heaven. I beg to submit to the court. Your Honor, please, if you would do this game thing that I made, and we can find out what your favorite color should be. Remember those? They were fun. And on the morrow, Justine died, and we should be solemn about it. Elizabeth's heart-rending eloquence failed to move the judges from their settled conviction in the criminality of the saintly sufferer. My passionate and indignant appeals were lost upon them, and when I received their cold answers and heard the harsh, unfeeling reasoning of these men, my purposed avowal died away on my lips. Thus I might proclaim myself a madman, but not revoke the sentence passed upon my wretched victim. She perished on the scaffold as a murderess. Oh, I should write every film. I've got so many ideas. One of them is about this woman played by me who's very beautiful and gets to make out with all the hot boys of screen and TV and movie. That's right, flashing me left ankle. Hey, hey, how's that then? So, bye bye, Justine. Goodbye, England's Rose. From the tortures of my own heart, which were the most tortured of all, remember? I turned to contemplate the deep and voiceless grief of my Elizabeth. This also was my doing, and my father's woe, and the desolation of that late so smiling home was all the work of my thrice accursed hands. Ye weep, unhappy ones, but these are not your last tears. Again shall you raise the funeral wail, and the sound of your lamentation shall again and again be heard. Frankenstein, your son, your kinsman, your early much loved friend, he who would spend each vital drop of blood for your sakes, who has no thought nor sense of joy except as it is mirrored also in your dear countenances, who would fill the air with blessings and spend his life in serving you. He bids you weep, to shed countless tears, happy beyond his hopes if thus inexorable fate be satisfied, and if the destruction paused before the peace of the grave succeeded to your sad torments. Thus spoke my prophetic soul, as, torn by remorse, horror, and despair, I beheld those I loved spend vain sorrow upon the graves of William and Justine, the first hapless victims to my unhallowed arts. Yes, absolutely. Yes, I want to meet Kristen Stewart and talk to her. Um, I don't know if you'd want Kristen Stewart there, but it's cool. You can just tell her that you got sick on the day if you don't particularly fancy it. I have a lot of questions for her. Um, yeah, but that was the end of that chapter, chapter 8. I love her. I always loved her. I loved her for being high at Hollywood dinners. Um, I loved her for not smiling for the cameras. No, it's going to be a lovely romantic movie with a lot of sword fights. It'll be like Highlander, but the prize is me. And every time I watch a sword fight, I'm wearing a different, beautiful jeweled gown. Oh, awesome! Yeah, Josh, um, you can also be part of the movie because, like, we want to get the gay dudes in there as well. It's mostly going to be about me, honestly. You'll be my sidekicks, and I know that's problematic, but it was my idea, so in the end, my character will actually die horribly because that'll give me a really cool death scene. And then I'll have some ghost scenes, and then it'll be about you guys having happy endings, right? And that will make it unproblematic. Probably. Oh man, her Joan Jett was insane, right? She sounded just like her. She's that movie she was in with James Gandolfini, she was incredible in that. I knew she was a good actress. Like, Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson both acted like shit in Twilight because they hated Twilight. They thought their characters were dummies. Ah, I mean, Dakota Fanning's Cherie Curry sounded completely different, but it did sound really cool in its way. But Kristen Stewart's Joan Jett was just so spot on. It was amazing. Yeah. I can see we've been going for about 50 minutes. Hello, Fitzer. Want to come up here and see the people? No, he wants to go outside. No, she didn't come in. Let me just check the next chip. It's pretty long. Yeah. God, this is like a friggin' fan fiction. Like, the early chapters are quite short, and then they get really into it. Catty, all my catties. I'll try and lure Flora over here. Hey, what's that? It's the cat. It's the heart ones. The calcium heart treats. Come on, sweetie. Flora. Flora, something nice? Come on. Come on, that's the way. Come on, over here. I'm not going to throw them. People want to see you, my love. Come on. I'm going to try and get her up here for you. Flora. What's that? Come on. What's that? Something she likes. Cats in fantasy movies. Yeah, anything with a sword fight in it, or a Rottweiler making friends with a kitten, or just being a Rottweiler. Okay, now Flora, you want to come up here? Come and get him. Oh, I know, but you wouldn't come and see the people. You wouldn't come and see the people. Here, look, look. You want to eat that? That was the most you were going to get, I'm afraid. No, I haven't seen Owl Kitty. It sounds like I have, though. Sounds right. Owl Kitty. Yeah, I think we should all join a medieval reenactment society and then make it super weird. Like, just so weird that no one wants to be part of it. Is that nice? Is that nice? My baby. That's my baby. You want another one? Just to give the people some content. She does want to give the people some content. Okay. That one. I can't get her to take it out of my hand because it's a trick that she has to relearn. It takes forever. Okay. Trick. You never really learned trick, did you? Okay. The gang ruins the Ren Fair. No, I was in a reenactment group when I was like 13. I'm pretty sure I saw all the least weird stuff because of being 13. Super weird. But by weird, I just meant like we would turn it into Irony Twitter, the medieval reenactment club. I think that would be great. That would have a certain appeal. But yeah, thank you very much for joining me. The wig actually did cheer me up. It's very bouncy. Throwing it around. The gang ruins the Ren Fair. Oh god. That's going to get into my head and create like it'll create like a vision scenario where I hear voices. Not literally. And have to do it on Twitter. Thank you. Thank you. She's taking a bow. No, she's not. She's licking something. Ew. Well, wash your hands. Be safe. I'm a doctor. Dr. Wig Mantis. Yeah, imagination. When you have voices that aren't voices, but it goes in your head and makes some pictures that you hadn't seen outside of it. It's imagination, baby. Bye.